At least 18 people died in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro yesterday after the police conducted a raid in the city's favelas. A 50-year-old woman who was a resident of the favelas and one police officer were among the casualties. Several bystanders were also injured as the police conducted a military-style operation against a gang based in the slums. The Brazilian police claimed it was necessary to stop the expansion of a gang, which was robbing vehicles, carrying cargo for banks and other businesses. A firefight broke out in the slums, which led to the deaths of at least 18 people.
Cargo ships will sail to Ukrainian ports, principally Odesa, and load up with Ukrainian grain, and then sail back through Ukrainian naval minefields. Now, a Russian condition of that aspect of the plan is that the cargo ships will be inspected beforehand to make sure that they're not carrying weapons to Ukraine. The second aspect of this plan is that the naval corridors that the Ukrainians open through their minefields will not be subject to Russian warships venturing down them to stage D-Day style landings on Ukrainian beaches.
Hungary's foreign minister held talks with his Russian counterpart to discuss increasing Russian gas supply purchases. The meet comes amid Russia's war with Ukraine, which has seen Europe face energy insecurity and its highest inflation in decades. The Hungarian minister, Peter Szijjártó, met Russia's Sergei Lavrov for bilateral talks in Moscow yesterday. They were held on the day that Hungary announced it would lift caps on gas and power prices for high-usage households. The Hungarian minister laid down Hungary's priorities during the meeting.
What was once the heart of Sri Lanka's protest movement now looks more like a military camp. As dawn broke over Colombo, heavily armed soldiers stood guard at the site, where just hours earlier they'd violently cleared protesters. Protesters had occupied the site for the last 3 months. Lying just outside the presidential offices, it had been a symbol of defiance to the Sri Lankan government. But then, hours before the protesters were due to leave the area, police and soldiers moved in anyway, beating demonstrators and journalists, according to witnesses. Soaring fuel and food prices have sparked huge protests against the country's ruling elite.
Funerals for the victims of Wednesday's artillery attack in the semi-autonomous Kurdish region. Women and children are among the victims when a multiple rocket hit a tourist resort in Zaho. Iraq says Turkish forces are responsible and has summoned its charge d'affaires in Ankara for consultation. It has also halted procedures to appoint a new ambassador. Angry protesters have tried to storm the Turkish consulate in Baghdad, as well as visa offices in Karbala and Basra. Turkey's foreign ministry has denied responsibility, suggesting the attack was an act of terrorism.
President Biden testing positive for COVID, learning he had COVID after routine testing this morning. The president's doctor, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, a short time later issuing a memo saying the president is, quote, fully vaccinated and double boosted and is being treated with the antiviral Paxlovid. He began taking it this morning. The president is 79, and from the White House today, Dr. Jha, the COVID response coordinator, offering reassuring words, saying the president has mild symptoms, a runny nose, a dry cough, and repeatedly pointing out the president has had his 2 vaccine shots, 2 boosters, and is now on that antiviral. And he reminded Americans, Dr. Jha did, that these are the same tools they have to fight this too. Shortly after the news this morning, the president tweeting, "I'm doing great," along with this photo of him at work at the White House residence now. And then a short time after that, this 21-second video on the White House balcony saying, "Hey, folks, guess you heard. I really appreciate your concern," saying, "Keep the faith. It's going to be okay."
Libya resumed oil export on Wednesday, ending a hiatus that lasted months. The resumption came after the country restarted production at oil fields following the firing of the chairman of the state-run oil corporation by one of the country's rival governments. A Malta-flagged tanker, Matala, docked at the Al Sidra terminal to ship 1 million barrels of crude oil. According to the statement of the National Oil Corporation yesterday, it started exporting and the first shipment was 40,000 barrels, and today it reached 600,000 barrels, and the process is constantly increasing.
As Lake Mead dramatically dwindles, a time capsule of the last 80-plus years is emerging. The latest exposed artifact, a World War II Higgins boat, designed to ferry heroes to storm the beaches.
People were actually scuba diving around this boat as recently as 2020. That means there was up to 40 feet of water above my head just a few years ago.
This brand new satellite imagery from NASA shows the stunning shrinking of Lake Mead over the last 22 years.
Lake Mead is at only 27% capacity. This could be one of the worst droughts we've seen in 12 centuries. And the Bureau of Reclamation is telling the states that use this water, you have to come up with an emergency plan for cuts and restrictions in the next couple of weeks.
Scenes like these of people lining up at gas stations in Cameroon's capital, jerrycans in hand, are becoming commonplace. Most fuel stations have run out of diesel, and those that have are now rationing it. In the wake of scarce supplies of diesel, transporters have increased fares. While the fuel shortage situation is becoming untenable for motorists in the city of Yaoundé and surrounding towns, experts believe that this is a way for the authorities to prepare Cameroonians for a possible increase in fuel prices. On the international market, the cost of oil has increased, and the state is finding it hard to continue subsidizing fuel.